Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the first ISPA Marketplace webinar, designed to showcase the products and services available to ISPs from our ISPA partners. The ISPA Partnership Programme was set up 4 years ago and now has a strong contingent of 14 organisations who supply products and services into the UK ISP market to help ISPs thrive in an increasingly competitive and diverse market setup. I'm Christian, the Partnerships Manager here at ISPA, and I am delighted to be joined by representatives from our partner organisations, including Stoddart, EMEA Marketing Manager at Viavi Solutions, Dan Bloch, Vice President of Global Cloud Solution Sales at Calix, and Jan-Willem Nijman, EMEA Sales Director at PelicanCorp. In recent months, the UK ISP sector has started to see some of what has been speculated and expected for some time, with an increased scrutiny from investors, market consolidation as seen by the recent Fern Group merger, and a greater focus placed on revenue, expenditure and take-up. It is becoming clear that ISPs should be looking at how they can maximise their capabilities and efficiencies in every aspect of their business. The following presentations are from our speakers, and we'll take you through some of the value-add services that they offer for ISPs in the market today. Just as a bit of housekeeping before we kick off, I would ask all non-speakers to keep the mics muted throughout the course of the webinar and put any questions they might have in the chat. Each speaker will have 5 minutes at the end of their speaking presentation to answer any questions you may have. Now that's out of the way, I'm pleased to bring in our first speaker, EMEA Marketing Manager Stoddart from Viavi. Viavi are well established in the UK, working with many of the UK's fibre builders to ensure efficient rollout and maintenance of their fibre networks through their smart and easy to use testing tools. I'm pleased to let Ross take it away. And if you want to crack on with sharing your screen.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Christian. I trust you can all hear me okay. I hope there's no issues there, but I'll go ahead and get started. So thank you very much, Christian, for inviting us to be part of this first webinar. It's great to be part of the ISPA organisation, and it's great to be here speaking with everyone today. So my name is Ross Stoddart, as Christian mentioned. My role is the EMEA Regional Marketing Manager for our fibre product line, and I work with a range of our experts across the globe to bring our solutions to market. So I'll give a brief introduction to Viavi Solutions for those of you that don't know us, because we have went through a few name changes over the years, so you may have heard of us by another name, but we are a global brand that manufactures a range of testing tools and systems to make installing, activating and maintaining fibre networks faster, easier and smarter than ever before. I won't read too much about some of the stuff here, but as I said, we're a global company, headquartered in the US, plenty of instruments in use across the world, and staff and teams all over the world as well. We have 100 years of history, dating back to 1923 with Wandel and Golterman, and there's been various mergers and acquisitions and name changes since then. You may have heard of Acterna or JDSU, and in 2015 we rebranded to be Viavi Solutions, who we are today. So what we really focus on is driving network visibility through, as I mentioned, the installation, activating and maintaining of fibre networks. And we do that with a sort of three-step process that benefits our customers. So first of all is testing. We make testing tools and systems that help our customers accelerate and automate to thousands of tests per day. That allows them to act and ensure they're getting quality in their network with real-time performance visibility, and ultimately to help them earn. We know how important it is to maximize revenue and the returns on investments in the network assets. And that's what we believe our solutions help do. So where do we fit in the network? Well, we have various solutions, as I mentioned, and we actually have solutions that operate across all stages of the network lifecycle. So if I take an example, sort of simplified network topology here, where we're going from a central office or exchange through to, in this case, some homes, customer premise, and you can see we've got a little bit of a diagram there. We have a range of solutions. So one of them is centralized testing, which is where an embedded high density OTDR goes into the exchange. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment or two. Whenever there's fiber, there needs to be fiber inspection and cleaning. That's extremely important. You never know what's there. We always say inspect before you connect. That's the number one cause of network issues, is actually dirty interfaces and fibers. So important to always inspect and clean. No testing solution for fiber is complete without an OTDR. In all honesty, we do unidirectional and bidirectional solutions for that, which means testing one way or testing both directions in the fiber to get more accurate reading. And we have a range of solutions for that, which I'll briefly touch on in a moment as well. We also do a range of power meters for drop fiber certification, and a range of solutions as well for in the home testing for PON, Ethernet and Wi-Fi, because as we know, there's more and more devices being connected by customers every single day, and that is sometimes causing some issues in the home with connectivity. So as I mentioned there is a couple of solutions I'm going to highlight. So when it comes to testing your network, there's two major, not only two, but two major approaches to take to this. The first one that I will talk about is a centralized testing approach. So that's where a high density OTDR is embedded into the exchange for the network, so you can see it here. Let me just put my laser pointer on so you can maybe see a little better. So this is what we call the fiber test head, FTH, and that's embedded in the exchange and then connects to our online system called ONMSI, which you can see some screenshots of here. And the way this works is by simply an engineer goes out into the field with a reflector, they plug that in at wherever the demarcation point is, and then they connect with a mobile phone app to run a test remotely. And this means the results are then saved in real time, and there's full end-to-end visibility of the performance and the quality of the fiber, the physical layer, and they are saved in real time. And it allows our provider, our customers to test quicker, because they're not having to deal with some of the challenges with equipment in the field or training people with new equipment. It's just simply a phone app that they press a button and start running the test. It's a scalable system as well, so as a business expands and grows, the platform can grow and expand as well. All the data is saved automatically, as I mentioned, which is a real benefit, because you then have that birth certificate of the network when you are building out. An easy to use phone app as well, as I mentioned, which is certainly an issue we're seeing with a lot of our customers just now, is that skill set challenge. They are trying to train, or they can't train engineers as quick as they need them. So certainly reducing those barriers to entry is always a benefit. The other approach that people will often take is a handheld approach. So using handheld field tools such as a traditional OTDR or some other solutions we have here. This is the Smart OTDR, one of our major products, as well as the Network and Service Companion, which is used for in-home testing and is operated via a mobile app. Again, you can see here. We make a wide range of solutions for this across the entire network lifecycle. So whether it's build, activation, or maintenance. All of our products are designed with the field in mind, so that really rugged design for long-lasting durability. As I mentioned before, we were previously known by a number of different names, and even though we changed from JDSU to Viavi in 2015, I'm still seeing engineers out in the field using Viavi, JDSU branded equipment, because it is just so well built and durable. But what's more important than that is we have a very user-friendly interface to make the results easy to understand for both new and experienced engineers. And we also allow the ability to switch between the simplified icon view, which you can see here, which clearly identifies this is a fault that needs fixed, and then we have little green ticks to show that that's good, that's passed. So you can switch easily between that and the more traditional trace view, which some of our more experienced fiber technicians would like to see. You can do that at a touch of a button, nice and simple and easy to use for any of the engineers who do use them. And like most products these days, there is some element of being powered by the cloud. So we have various solutions that help automate the testing process, such as we have a solution called Job Manager, where managers or an engineer can set up exactly what they want to do in a job. It is then downloaded to the product, to the OTDR, and as soon as they get out in the field and turn it on, they know exactly what they have to do when they get to the job site. So they have a simple checklist they go through, and once the jobs are done, it's uploaded to the cloud and saved in the cloud for management to have easy access to the results and to have that definitive documentation. And one thing I would love to shout out as well, that we have fantastic support in the customer service team. I'm actually based in the Edinburgh office, and that's where many of our support staff are as well. And they do a fantastic job helping our customers each and every day of the week. So I'd like to shout out them. But one thing I would also like to touch on as well is that these solutions are mostly focused on kind of the physical part of the fiber, but we do also create a range of solutions for the sort of layer 2 and above. So with those solutions, we're seeing, we have this kind of mantra of dispatch to fix, not to find. So when, you know, some of your customers may be having a quality of experience issue, or maybe if you're a wholesaler, for example, you might have a CP contact you, say, well, one of the customers is saying there's an issue here, we need to send someone out to look at it. Or maybe if you're retail and one of your customers is phoning up saying they've got a problem, again, you would need to send an engineer out into the field to try and find the issue. What a lot of our solutions we're using just now, such as Fusion or ExpertTrack, they allow once your customer phones up to say there's an issue, you can simply run a test, and within a few minutes you get a report back to you to say if there is an issue on the broadband, because sometimes it is just an in-home Wi-Fi issue that the customer thinks is the broadband. It's actually to do with their Wi-Fi setup. And if there is an issue in the broadband, it automatically identifies where the issue is, what the cause of it is, and then gives you the information you need to basically send the right people out to the right place to fix the issue. So that means that you're reducing truck rolls, the expensive truck rolls, and you're reducing your mean time to repair as well. So we have a various solutions that look at the service path as well as the physical path of your network. So I will summarize things just now. I don't want to take up too much time, and I want to offer time for questions as well. But so why Viavi Solutions? Well, we very much believe in automating your testing processes across the network lifecycle, because this gives you the increased visibility that you need to ensure you have a quality network. Because at the end of the day, the customer is demanding more and more every day from their broadband and from their internet, and connecting more and more devices every single day. So that requires network quality. When we're talking about building a full fiber network for generations to come, that we have to ensure the quality foundations are there from the beginning. We also offer tools that are very fast, easy to use and reliable, and have, as I mentioned, industry-leading support and technical experts. And lastly, we are here to help accelerate your full fiber deployments with the quality that your customers demand. So we have those technical experts from across the globe that are here to help you figure out your testing problems and help you be smarter with your testing. So from myself and my friendly little fiber ninja here, I'd like to say thank you for listening to me talk. And if you want to know more, you can access information on our website or reach out directly. And if anyone has any questions, I'll gladly take them just now. Thank you.
I think I'll jump in there because I've got a few questions for you, Ross. And the first one might be a little bit mean, but because it's away from sort of stuff we talked about. But at sort of the investor event we were talking about last week, we were talking about sort of the impact of mapping fiber networks and what the knock-on effect is to the investment community. From your side of things, what do you find is most vital when you're working with ISPs to make sure that kind of stuff is covered and is attractive to the investment community?
Yeah, so I think investment community, as we know, there's a lot of investment going into the UK market just now. I think they are starting to see, I think maybe the financial challenges over the last year are kind of impacting that a little bit, but I think they're starting to focus more on the quality of what they're investing in and having more visibility into that. We used to see conversations be about, I heard someone coin this phrase, I don't know who it was unfortunately, so I can't give them the credit they deserve, but I heard this phrase a while ago, fibre to the press release. Was being thrown around, and I think that was very true. It seemed like that every week we were getting a new press release, a new ISP had hit a certain amount of homes passed. But now these investors are realizing that actually there's a lot more that goes on with building our network than just simply passing homes and trying to connect them. There's a large part in between there that is perhaps a little bit undervalued. But from our side, the main thing that we're trying to see in that space is giving the people the visibility they need, because the more data they have, the more better decisions they can make, and especially when we get to mergers and acquisitions, as started to kind of happen a little bit, having that visibility of the network is key, so they know exactly what they're investing in. And it works from both ways. So if for example, smaller providers are maybe looking to be acquired, if they can have that data on hand to say, we have a quality network and we can prove it, then you will get the money that you're asking for, essentially. If someone's asking those questions and you're not able to provide the answers, then that may cause other issues as well. So I hope that has answered your question, Christian.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And to sort of follow up with that as well, what do you find sort of the big other challenges that your customers are facing at the moment, and sort of what do they come to you to sort of help with beyond just the investment market?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, obviously one of the major issues our customers are having just now is more the financial aspect of things, and interest rates and stuff like that. Not that Viavi can help with any of that, but in terms of from a testing point of view, I would probably say the number one issue is the skill set bottleneck. So there's so much fibre to be deployed at such a speed that, or a desired speed, I should say, that the industry is not able to train new engineers as fast as they need them to actually deploy. So that's why when we look at some of our solutions, we are trying to simplify them, automate them, so that we don't need to, these providers don't need to then spend as much time training them, that the product will do a lot more of the work for them. In reality, OTDR technology, for example, hasn't really changed much in the last 10 years, the actual hardware. But what has changed is the software side of things. So that's where we're seeing more apps on the devices to help simplify the whole process for engineers using cloud technology and such. You see a lot more products now with icon views on them to clearly tell them this is what's wrong and why it's failed, to make troubleshooting a lot easier. So that's a big thing, and also data recording as well. Fibre has a lifespan. It's not something that when it's in the ground that's it for life. It does have a lifespan, and one thing we're seeing is people realizing, oh, the quality of this isn't quite holding up as well as we thought it was. Well, do you have a point to reference it to? Do you have a birth certificate for that actual physical part of the network? And if you don't, then you don't really have a reference point to really fully compare it and understand what is going on, because often these things are underground as well, and that can obviously be, some of the issues can be sometimes hidden from that. So yeah, that's probably the main things we're seeing.
Yeah, massively important for ISPs, especially sort of we continue with that build. So I think it's all very relevant, and yeah, I think most of the ISPs you work with currently find you very fruitful. So definitely opportunity for
I'd like
more
to
ISPs.
think so.
Yeah. Delivery value, the key things. So
Absolutely.
I think if there's no other questions, I think like to thank Ross for presenting there. It's very valuable, really interesting to learn more about what Viavi do. And with that, I'd like to sort of introduce the next speaker. And talking of software, I'd like to introduce you to Dan Bloch, with over 25 years of experience in the computering sector. He is part of the Calix team as the Vice President of Global Cloud Solution Sales. Calix joined ISPA only 9 months ago, but I've seen some great partnerships develop with a variety of ISPs and wholesalers in the UK market. And they enable service providers of all types and sizes to innovate and transform, driving ARPU through software that creates better in-home experiences, improves revenue streams, and reduces churns. So yeah, with that, I'd like Dan to take it away, and love to learn more about Calix and what you guys do.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Hopefully you can see my presentation and you can hear me okay. Let me start a little bit, just kind of giving 30 seconds on Calix, Silicon Valley-based company in California. Been servicing broadband service providers and ISPs for over 20 years, starting out in the access side, and then over the last 15 years also in the premises. And in particular, over the last 5 to 6 years, we've had a real focus on helping create a set of experiences that can be brought to subscribers across different domains. And that's really what I'm going to be here to discuss today. And I'll leave some opportunity for questions. But essentially, what we're trying to do is help our customers, ISPs and broadband service providers, meet your customers, the subscribers, where they are. And that's what I want to talk about. But I would be remiss if I didn't start by apologizing for my colonial accent. I've been practicing British, Scottish, and Irish, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to do that here today. But my coworkers certainly have had a taste of that, and I get lots of criticism. So I'll just stick with this Canadian thing. I'm actually Swiss, but live in Canada and have done so for many years now. And we have a large UK-based team servicing UK and Ireland. So see, there's that Irish thing that just popped up. And so we'll share a little bit about what we're doing currently in the UK to support many of our customers in the UK. So let's talk a little bit about a day in the life of the subscriber. It's really shifting, and it's not looking back and saying, you know, it's just about devices being added, et cetera. I'll talk a little bit about some of the UK statistics in a bit. And it's really this idea that we always need to be connected. And whether I'm at home, or if I'm at work, or if I'm out and about in the community, I want to always be connected. Now, historically, that's been done over the mobile networks. And what I would like to discuss today is the possibility of how that could be done over fiber and Wi-Fi, creating this sort of always on lifestyle with no lag, no jitter, no drop, gaming experiences or video streaming experiences that are resilient to movement of the device. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. And so we'll frame that up first by talking about some of the shaping trends. So this is UK specific data that we've been collecting. And what we have learned from our surveys is that 60% of people would consider customer service being critical or a main feature, and additional services to make that customer service experience worthwhile are what creates stickiness and keeps you kind of beyond that first 2-year contract that you sign up your subscribers for. And the more and more devices that get connected, and on average, it's 9 devices per home right now in the UK. I guess I'm aberrant. I just checked my app this morning. I have 53, and there are at least 2 people not home. So I'm going to guess it's probably a little over 60 normally. But 9 devices per home. And some of those are stationary devices, and some of those are mobile devices. And that's what we want to talk about. Then at work, there's a very large percentage of people willing to pay for additional features that make their at work experience more reliable, better quality, and delivering sufficient speed to do what needs doing. And the opportunity in the UK market is very large. So if you think just about small businesses alone, there's 5.5 million in the UK. And so making sure that you can service that environment as well is extremely important. And that environment cares even more so about things like security and giving the apps that they need. And then there's finally a bunch of use cases for community. And there's a a lot of Wi-Fi hotspots in the UK today. And I'm not talking about hotspots. Hotspot means I can open up my Wi-Fi, I can pick another SSID that's servicing me locally. Security be danged unless I happen to have some protection on the device that I'm using it. But that gives me access, and that's probably fine if you want to flip through the news, et cetera. But you are opening yourself up to a lot of predatory behavior when you do that. And if you have a work device and you're doing that, you're also exposing your business or your corporation to a bunch of additional risk unless they're doing a lot to protect the device. So you have weak security. You don't necessarily have all the login you would expect to be able to authenticate. Hey, am I an authenticated user that should be using this network? Often hotspots, the performance is questionable, and there aren't enough routers to either handle the load of synchronous users or how far you are from the particular router that you're connecting to. So coverage is questionable. And then you always have this idea, well, should I be monetizing that hotspot, or is this a hotspot I'm giving away, or will it be sponsored and somebody else is paying for it, for example, at an airport? And so the other thing I would like to talk about is the idea of Wi-Fi on the go and what that means from a community perspective. So here's the opportunity that we are seeing. First of all, we need to enhance the home experience beyond the demarcation point of the ONT to the home, beyond even putting a router inside the home. The router, the first experience people will have is typically Wi-Fi. Sure, we'll have some hard connected devices over Ethernet, but the first experience is Wi-Fi. And if the Wi-Fi experience is bad, then the ISP always gets that blame, gets that call. Oh, you know what? My iPad 1 isn't working well. And the ISP has to, troubleshoot and decide, well, maybe you shouldn't be using an iPad 1 anymore because it's hogging all the bandwidth. So that the first experience in the home is Wi-Fi, but you can be delivering other experiences in the home. And that's one of the things we deliver as part of our services. And then as you move into providing internet and Wi-Fi in a work environment for small business, it's about transitioning from just selling connectivity to enabling productivity and resiliency. So what happens if there's a fiber cut? Does that mean, that coffee shop or that retailer suddenly can't take point of sale transactions? So you need to be able to provide both improved productivity and resiliency. If you're a business that has a high influx of seasonal workers during the summer students, what happens to all the people you enabled on your network? Are you actually managing and getting them off when they leave? Are you removing them? Are you pausing them? So, the idea of being able to secure your network, even if you're a really small business, and then making sure that you can provide that resiliency into the community. And that could be everything from I'm leaving my house and I'm going to walk the dog, and I don't want to pause the YouTube video that my child sent me and I want to watch it as I'm walking the dog, and I don't want to revert necessarily to 5G, or I'm on a device that isn't using a mobile 5G connection. Or maybe there are other community scenarios. So parks, farms to enable IoT, which is really important, or festivals with sort of a temporary availability. Education, making sure that students in my community have the ability to connect, even if they can't afford it at home. How am I enabling that? So we believe that when you enhance the subscriber experience and you think about it from the subscriber's lens, it's really about making sure that they have a managed experience. Entry level point is Wi-Fi, and then you have the opportunity to extend how much you will be in their experience by making decisions about where and how you'll participate. So you have to give them tools to operate and enhance that experience. You also want to adapt to their connective lifestyle, making sure that they have a secure and protected experience. We don't want the 3-year-old to say, hey, mommy and daddy, the baby monitor asked me if I want ice cream. That's a bad situation. So we don't want to enable those types of things. We want to make sure our subscribers and the members of our network, and that's how we view them, they're members, are having a safe experience. And then as we move into providing services for small business, which is an extension from the home, but there are other tools needed, we have to do things that also secure the connection in the same way we are in the home, but also enable the types of things we need in a business. So if I'm a baker and I also serve coffee and I want people to stay in my shop, maybe I want to provide guest Wi-Fi, but I want to do that in a safe and protected way. Maybe I want to collect their email addresses and have a sort of sign-up wall. Maybe I want to offer it for services, a paywall. Those are all options you want to be able to give when you're delivering services to small business. And you need to give them a proliferation of equipment that will enable what they need. That might mean a switch. That might mean a router. That might mean a hardened router for outdoors use. So you need to have this range of services that you can provide in order to enable small business use. And then again, in the community, hotspots are great, but they have some situations that aren't necessarily what you're trying to manage for. And if you could take the same managed approach that you have in the home and that you have in small business and offer it to the community, that means if I'm a paying subscriber at home and I leave my house, I shouldn't have to re-authenticate. I should just be able to continue my experience. I shouldn't notice that I'm leaving. If I pass a small business customer who's also participating in that community Wi-Fi, I should be able to leverage that as well if that's how I choose to set it up. And so we believe that it should be a seamless experience, whether you're starting it from the home, you're doing it during the workday, or you're out and about running errands on the evenings and the weekend. And that's all enabled through having a set of managed services. So maybe I'll create a little bit of understanding in terms of how we do that here. The platform that we deliver these sets of services on isn't different in any of these three use cases. So whether you're serving the community, small business, or the home, it is the same set of services. It is the same operating system, regardless of the type of hardware you're putting to do the job. So if it's a hardened outdoor router sitting in a lamp pole or in the side of the building, or it's a switch inside the business that has a mix of VoIP and Ethernet ports and is also delivering Wi-Fi, or if it's a Wi-Fi mesh network sitting in the house, it's always the same operating system, which means we enable a delivery of a set of services that then can be purposed for their specific use case. And so that allows you to do managed Wi-Fi. That allows you to give an a smartphone app or a tablet app to any of those community members to be able to manage or log into their experience. You're protecting them at the network level from intrusion. You can do policy management or parental controls through Experience IQ, and you can provide resiliency to your network. So in particular for small business or home, if for some reason there's an outage or a power outage and I can no longer access my fiber network, you need to enable automated rollover to an alternative backhaul, for example, mobile, so that I can still take pause transactions, or I can still work from home, but I'm going to pause everything else that's happening in the home. So I'll allow Zoom or Teams, but I'm going to shut down Netflix so that I can use that Wi-Fi, or sorry, that mobile backhaul to continue my experience. And as long as we're providing that set of consistency by using the same platform, the same tools, the same hardware, we can serve all these different use cases, but manage it as one. So there's not a big change to your MOPS. You manage it the same way. You don't have to retrain your people based on the type of situation where you're managing Wi-Fi for, and you use the same tools. So you get resiliency in your people. You're less subjective to what churn means in your environment, because you can train them up and they can serve everyone everywhere. And so what we do is we don't care where you start. You decide how you want to build it. Our router family is called the Giga family. We have a whole host of configurations of routers that I'm not sharing today, but can follow up on. And then you decide where you want to start, maybe you want to start in the home servicing subscribers. We have customers in the UK who are choosing to focus on small business first. And now that we've enabled the idea of Smart Town, we have some customers who are looking at maybe Smart Town is where they start with us, and that's fine too. It really doesn't matter. And then we add in all these additional services, and you decide, am I going to charge for these or am I going to give these away? And those are all choices you get to make as you go to business. I know I'm running short, so I'll try to stick on time. Apologies, Chris. I'm going as fast as I can. Set my own alarm. So
that's okay. Crack on.
Yeah, wrap up. So this enables you to decide what you're going to do with value-added services. You can create revenue streams. You can decide what you want to do with your margins and ARPU. You can focus on delivering customer satisfaction. Because it's a single platform to do all of those, it helps you reduce your operational costs. And most of all, allows you to focus on your customer, which will drive loyalty and reduce churn. We have a large set of capabilities that we've invested in to build this out. Spent over $1 billion in R&D, and I'll stop there to allow for a question or two before we pass it over to Jan.
Yeah, I think that was really interesting, Dan, actually, especially that's the first time I've come across sort of Calix's community experience, which I think is really interesting, especially around the security aspect and the vulnerability we see in the modern day when using Wi-Fi hubs in the community. But I kind of wanted to bring it back with one of the questions I've got, sort of regarding the business aspect of why an ISP would look to use Calix as a subscriber experience provider. You talked a bit about sort of the overall subscriber experience for the consumer, but why is that important for an ISP to look at as sort of the market matures and sort of looks beyond just the pipeline into a premises? Why is it sort of important that ISPs value subscriber experience beyond that?
100%. Great question. Thank you, Christian. So look, the gold rush of lots of free money available to go build infrastructure and fiber networks, who knows when the gravy train ends, but we're certainly seeing a switch on the private funding side where the metric of homes passed is no longer the only metric, but in fact, there's an expectation for a return on investment. And so as an ISP, if you're not creating that return on investment, you're positioning yourself to be bought, which is fine if that's your exit strategy. If you're reselling somebody else's network, which is also often the case in the UK, then you really have to think about, how will I look different from everyone else? And if you're not doing that, you're competing on price and speed. And so if you don't create a differentiated experience, it's very hard to make your brand stand out from other brands. Now, there are some brands who've done a great job of that, and I won't, there's a wide audience here, so I won't sort of name drop specific companies. And I've been impressed with what some companies have been able to do. But if you don't think about, how am I going to take the subscriber experience and make it different than what anybody else can provide in a competitive market? If I don't enable that across their entire lifestyle, whether that's at home or at work or on the go, I'm not differentiating. And so we're starting to see customers today that are talking about, if you're my home subscriber, when you're on the go in a community that I've chosen to light up, you don't have to pay anything extra. That's part of the value differentiated service I provide. You don't have to re-authenticate. You get the same security on the go. And so I think thinking about the subscriber experience will help you differentiate, and that will drive monetization, either of your organization if you're reselling, or of your network if you're an altnet.
No, mate, that makes perfect sense. I think I'll squeeze one extra question in here. Obviously, sort of having a managed service and subscriber experience comes at additional cost, but how does that turn into a strategic advantage for an organization rather than sort of a cost implication?
Yeah, so that really depends on how you bring those additional services in your go-to-market strategy. One of the things we do as a part of our engagement is we don't charge for this. We've just found that our customers have been asking for this, so we deliver it as part of our engagement. Is we go in, we do what we call a marketing consult, and we understand from our customers what are their objectives, what are they trying to get to, what are they measuring, what do they need to get to, how much of that is subscriber acquisition, how much of that is improving ARPU, and then together we build a plan on how to be able to kind of fund the incremental investment that you're talking about. And so we've been able to largely do that through having persona-based packaging. So rather than I sell 150 meg, I sell 500 meg, I sell a gig, or if you're in Switzerland, 10 gig, because that's what they do there.
Adventurous.
Yeah. You instead you sell, you know what, I have a gaming package, I have a work from home package, I have an on the go package. And then because that's so different, in particular in the UK market, that means you can escape the commoditization in terms of how pricing is being done today.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, especially market changes coming in. There's definitely some systems in place like one touch switch, which is going to increase the competition in the market. So anything that can make you stand out as an ISP, I think is certainly valued as we move forward in the market. But I think with that, I'm going to have to pass on to Jan-Willem. But thank you very much, Dan, for your time. It was very interesting and fascinating to hear.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And finally, I'd like to introduce Jan-Willem Nijman. He's EMEA Sales Director of the newest ISPA partner, PelicanCorp. PelicanCorp is a global leader in damage prevention services. I think something that's particularly poignant given the massive FTTP build we've seen over recent years, and closing in on 50%. And so, yeah, I'm really interested to hear more about PelicanCorp and what you can do for the ISP sector, Jan. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. Really appreciate this opportunity, and also thanking my previous speaker, Dan Ross. I hope the sound is okay. Christian, can you confirm that?
I can confirm. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, okay. Look, in the next about 10-12 minutes, I will basically talk about not so much about PelicanCorp, which is the company where I'm working for, but more about GeoLentics 360, which is a cloud-based mapping solution. Before we do that, a little bit about PelicanCorp. We are what is the slide saying, global leader in damage prevention. One of the things we do is actually protecting the underground assets for utilities and also fiber companies. So around the globe, we have currently about 8,000 utility fiber companies in contract, basically. And in the UK, the service that is, let's say, that you might know is Line Search Before You Dig. And I know that some of the ISPA members are actually a member of Line Search Before You Dig to protect their fiber assets. And maybe as a sidestep, I think most damages in the UK, in every country, by the way, actually are happening around fiber networks, because they're the first one you basically hit in the ground. So there is absolutely a need for protecting, particularly if you think about having to be always connected, actually. But the topic where I'm trying to talk about basically is another solution we bring to the market, which is actually cloud-based mapping, and actually a different way of sketching. And this is all about actually as late as build documentation of networks. And particularly in the fiber industry, if I'm looking to the UK, but also in my own country, the Netherlands, where I'm from, the rollout of fiber, of course, is very, very fast. And often it's, for a lot of companies, difficult to keep the documentation up to date and actually keep it accurate. And that's actually, in quite often, they're actually missing, in that case, valuable information about their networks. And not only that, if the network is not accurately documented, it also means higher risk of damages, actually. So let me explain what we actually are doing. What I see in the market, in a lot of cases still, is that the way documentation is done of networks when they're put in the ground is in many cases still on paper-based, or it's based on a combination of paper and maybe offline media, like on a USB or an Excel sheet. It has to be brought to an office for post-processing to put it into a GIS or a CAD system. And one of the other challenges that a lot of companies are facing there is the time it takes between actually putting, let's say, finishing the job and completing the documentation. And then another big challenge, I think, is in many cases, also in the UK, multiple teams and even multiple contractors are working on the fiber networks. So the way, let's say, documentation is actually brought to the fiber, the ISPA company itself is often in different formats, which have to be processed in different ways by teams in the office. It all basically means that more errors basically to be made and also more time and inefficiencies in that process. So what we basically do for already quite a long time is actually bringing to the market a tooling basically that's allowing actually from the field on to map it digitally with high accuracy if needed, meaning centimeter accuracy. And not only that, not only mapping, let's say, the networks, but also applying, for example, additional georeference photos, field notes, and more importantly, workflow that basically means that every team is working the same way. And ultimately, basically, it means also that the documentation is finished much faster. If I look in this country, where in the Netherlands, for example, where GeoLentis is used quite a lot, after finishing basically the field work, within 24 hours, the documentation is actually up to date. So if we look to the, let's say, the total solution, basically, then in the middle, of course, this is not our delivery, by the way. This is one of the devices what we can hook up to, which is, this is a GNSS GPS receiver, basically, for, let's say, centimeter accuracy locating. GeoLentis itself consists of an app that can run either on Android or iOS. That's basically used by a person in the field, could be a surveyor or a blue-collar worker from a contractor or from your own teams. And then in the background, the back end, the management console, which is in the office and running on a browser, basically. And so the idea here around it, the way it works, is that a person in the field will collect data. That data, as long as there's a reception, will be automatically synchronized in the cloud, and it will be immediately actually visible by the person in an office. They can review the data, and from there on can be exported into whatever other system you may have. Could be AutoCAD, could be SRE, could be another GIS system that you may have, or keep it in GeoLentis itself. So looking into the management environment, that is particularly used for configuration of the system, setting up feature classes. For example, what type of cables do you want to collect? What kind of attributes do you want to connect to that? The project management inside is setting up projects, reporting tasks, and user management. And so user management means, of course, setting up people in teams, and maybe also allowing people access to certain menu items or not. Then looking to the mobile app, one of the key design principles for us, of course, was that it had to be very easy, because a lot of our users are actually standard blue-collar workers. Many of our users are not, let's say, experienced surveyors. That means it has to be very, very simple, basically, to operate it. One of the great advantages I see is that we can either connect to GNSS receivers or even to electromagnetic locating devices, so-called cable locators. Like I mentioned, automatically the app will synchronize to the cloud. But if there's no reception, for example, somebody's working in an area where there's no good network coverage, then the app will basically store the data locally. And once there is reception again, it will start synchronizing the data. The field worker will always have basically background maps, which he can select basically, for example, Google Maps or maybe Ordnance Survey maps, whatever is applicable in the country, basically. Importantly also, apart from, let's say, collecting basically lines and points like you see here, he can also take, for example, photos of which are maybe important photos during what is put in the trench, maybe certain connections, just to, let's say, enhance the information that is basically captured in the field. Some advantages basically of this methodology, I think one very important, I think, is the faster updates of the as late as built information. The accuracy basically, if you use GNSS equipment, basically you can have up to centimeter accurate locating of the lines and points. In principle, basically eliminating manual post-processing in the office. So there's no need anymore here that there are files sent into the office that have to be processed. Now it's immediately ready for further processing into a GIS system. And the other thing, I think, compared to, let's say, a methodology that I showed in the beginning, is that there is really improved communication between what is happening in the field and the office. If you do, for example, in other ways, then there's often a need for communication between field and office to understand what has been collected. In this case, that's not the case. Then, of course, the integration with existing systems like GIS and CAD. And in general, I think the way this works is that centrally it's set up, but it ensures that every team basically works the same way as all the other teams. This is just an example of in the field how that looks like. A person with here, as you can see, operating with a GNSS receiver, having a tablet on a pole and running on GeoLentis on that. Some reporting, I'm not going to go too much in this, by the way, but this is maybe a nice example of a custom reporting that can be run from the system, showing, for example, an area where some locating has been done, in this case, data capturing of different cables with some text boxes pointing out a legend and the area where it's basically this work was done. Maybe some use cases already mentioned. Of course, one, GNSS mapping, surveying, locate and mapping, basically. Sometimes also mobile as a mobile CAD or mobile GIS, whereby GIS information is exported or imported into GeoLentis for viewing outside. And of course, also taking field notes. I think also important in the fiber space is, in many cases, I think you will use contractors for, let's say, rolling out your fiber. And one of the use case of GeoLentis is actually where you have a collaboration mode, where basically the contractors are using field apps from GeoLentis to document what they do, and that's immediately available for you in the back office. Now, some advantages over the other methods, and I already mentioned something basically. I think I'm not take them always, by the way, but I think what I think is important is the higher data quality that you can achieve. And not only that, but also additional information. I think the post-processing in office, like I said, eliminating that part of the work. And I think also if you want to connect basically GNSS equipment, we are basically vendor agnostic. So we deal with different vendors like Leica, Trimble, StoneX, and other brands. So maybe we have a lot of references basically all over Europe and the world. I've took one basically, which I like myself, in Luxembourg, the state-owned fiber company over there that's using GeoLentis. And they use it actually in this collaborative mode. And this is actually a dark fiber company that is running basically the backbone of the fiber in Luxembourg. Yeah, and that's basically the one thing that I wanted to share about what we do and what GeoLentis can mean for you. As I mentioned, I think the benefits is basically that you have faster documentation. Basically, people are working more uniformly in different teams. Everybody's working according to the same workflow, and also the accurately collecting data, basically, of where your fiber is put in the ground. And I'm happy to take some questions, by.
Yeah, I was just going to kick that off. I think you touched on it a little bit, but sort of in this country, sort of ISPs tend to partner with contractors to build their network. And so what are the advantages and what can sort of GeoLentis offer fiber builders as sort of they partner with those contractors to develop the network and roll out the network, especially with the growth we're seeing and the sort of ambitions of quite a lot of ISPs in the market at the moment in the UK?
Well, the best example I think is the Netherlands, where actually we run, let's say, basically GeoLantis with not only with fiber companies but also with other utilities. So where there is, let's say, where contractors use GeoLantis, and let's say what is documented is sent back to the utilities in a form of standardized format. Here it's basically a very advanced methodology, by the way, Christian. So because that not only encompassing fiber companies but also water utilities, gas utilities, etc. So, but like I showed in Luxembourg, for example, where Lux Connect is having basically GeoLantis as the base system. They basically hand out the app to the contractor that's doing the work for them. And basically for them, it ensures that if they have different contractors, that the way they get the documentation back is in the same way. So not that one contractor is sending back in their format and the other one in another format. So that's one way it could work basically in the UK.
Yeah, no, I think that'll provide a lot of value in terms of having some centralized systems in place is always useful for an organization, especially when sort of mapping a network at the moment is of vital importance. And they've got many teams out building. So yeah, no, that seems like very relevant stuff. I just wanted to touch on sort of how people might get in touch, and if there's trialing opportunities available. Is that something that our members could look to reach out and?
Yeah, that's actually quite easy to set up. The way we normally run that is very pragmatic. We set up a team session where we explain how that can be set up. We do a kind of small setup, and then basically we do a trial period of, let's say, 2 weeks where people can just experience how this works. And that's a very pragmatic approach, I would say.
No, I'm sure there's plenty of ISPs that'd love to take you up on that offer. We'll be recording this and sending this out to all the people that haven't made it today. So I think that'll be a good thing. And just one final question from me is sort of what is, if you were to put the benefits into a short sentence, what would it be if people were to look to partner with PelicanCorp when they're building their fiber networks?
Well, I think in general, if you take the whole end-to-end process, we normally talk about, in our opinion, 1 to 1.5 hour time savings a day. So I think that's, and in particular, I think in an environment where it's difficult to get people, I think, and even to get good people, by the way, because that's the other challenge, I would say. I think that's why I think these type of efficiency tools are helping basically the industry. And we all talk about fast rollout. I think then you have lots of challenges basically to make that happen. Yeah.
No, definitely. The UK market at the moment certainly trying to achieve fast, but I think efficient and organised rollout is massively key for that. So thank you for providing your insights on that. I suppose that kind of brings us towards the end of today. I think we're just about out of time. So I'd just like to say thank you to Ross, Dan and Jan-Willem for participating. Really interesting to hear more about the products you guys offer, and would just like to extend that invite. We'll be sending out a recording of the webinar after this, and we'll be putting you in touch with these guys if you want to ask more questions. So just like to leave you there and thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day.